all of those things in the moment were catastrophic emotionally, and I struggled through the process. But now looking back on it, that was my greatest accomplishment, just because I started again. It got me back in, and that developed into another one and another one. And before long, it grows into something significant. You just got to get started. I talk about it so much. Drive that point home.
I feel like that's going to be such an encouragement to somebody listening, because it's so true. Like, oftentimes we are in the trenches. It is the hardest thing. And then we look back 10 years later and we're like, oh, that's my biggest accomplishment, or that's the thing that I'm most proud of, or that's why I am where I am today. So hopefully that's a word to somebody.
Success in business means nothing
if you're losing in other areas of your life.
It's time to stop just building wealth
and start leading with conviction. I'm Jake Tracy.
I'm Sean Skyver, and this is the blueprint for the modern man, mastering real estate, scaling business,
and honoring God and family through courageous stewardship.
Let's get to work.
Hey, my name is Tori Hope Petersen.
And I'm Jacob Petersen.
And today we are going to be the interviewers on the Courageous Stewards podcast, interviewing Jake and Sean. And you will see that we have the littlest interviewer that has ever been on the podcast, littlest guest. Hopefully she stays quiet for us throughout this podcast. But we are so excited to learn a little bit from Jake and Sean. We have been on the podcast in the past, and when they were asking us questions, we acted like we knew a lot. But really, the whole time, I felt like I am the rookie and I should be asking them the questions. I want to be learning from them. And so this is what that podcast is for. Thank you guys for being willing to answer our questions.
We're excited to have you both back again. It was a great first episode with you guys, so we're looking forward to what today has in store.
We're honored that you thought highly enough of us to come back and ask us the questions, like maybe we do know something.
No, definitely you do.
So we're looking forward to it.
When we were talking, one of the many passions of why do we want to have investments? Why are we building a legacy this way? Is for our family. We want to have generational wealth. And I think investing this way allows us to have time for our family. But there's something very tricky about not working a traditional 9-to-5, right? And that's that you kind of work around the clock. Yesterday, we actually just got a message from our Airbnb guest at like 10 p.m. And that proceeded after that, it was 2 more hours of work until about midnight. And so you work around the clock when you don't have your traditional 9-to-5 job. And so what I hear from a lot of business owners is you don't work a traditional 9-to-5, but you work all the time. Yeah. I would be curious, do you guys feel that way? And if so, how do you balance that? Is there even a balance with our family, with community, all of the things that we want to do well? And what can others going into this work, what can they expect with not doing the traditional 9-to-5?
John, do you want to answer that?
I can start. Yeah, we're going to share a lot of this between Jake and I, because I think we have a pretty similar view on it. I've only been learning it the past couple of years. Jake's far more experienced in this, but you come to learn real quick that with this space, you can work all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think you've got to take advantage of those opportunities where it does, because it ebbs and flows. In this space, you're going to have days and weeks where it is go nonstop, and you got to get on it and you got to take care of it. But there may be a day where things are kind of quiet. I tell Jake about those all the time. Sometimes it just kind of gets kind of easy. Things kind of slow down. There aren't any major issues. So that's where you plug in some special time, maybe with family, or a break, or take a day for you and go do something else. But you got to be ready in this space to be surprised and have the ability to pivot very quickly into that next thing. So you kind of want to plan your day, you want to plan your time, but you also want to make sure that you're ready to change directions very quickly. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it'll come down to balancing kind of working, but also making sure you leave time and opportunity to create quality time, maybe where you with family. So you're going to make sure if you've got some time in a day, I'll go out on my lunch breaks at home and I'll throw a ball with my son, especially on summer break. Kids are home. Mm-hmm. So if I've got a break or I've got some downtime, I'm going to go plug in and get that quality time. I'm going to invest that opening that I have in my schedule.
Yeah, I would say to this question, it's really investment dependent. The type of investment avenue that you're working with is going to determine a lot. how involved you have to be and how quickly you have to be involved. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you brought up the short-term example, and we all here sitting at the table have short-term rentals. That is far more urgent. There is always a sense of urgency to communicate immediately with those guests because you're dealing with them from a host perspective. Like, it's a customer service, a lot more so. And they're depending on an answer from you immediately. Now, if you're in a situation where you're dealing with long-term rentals and you can create SOPs or standard operating procedures on how your tenants handle certain things, it's far less urgent for you to get back to them immediately, and you can kind of flex a little bit. For instance, in our situation, we use an online platform, and all of our tenants know you go in the platform, you put a maintenance request in. As long as it's not an emergency, that's the appropriate way to handle it, and then we will get to it as quickly as we possibly can. It may be that same day, it may be a few days, depending on the urgency of the situation. And so it gives you an opportunity to kind of handle your business at home or the immediate things that you have on your calendar and not feel like you have to jump immediately over to this other thing and constantly bouncing back and forth, sort of. But the way that Sean and I have always described this situation is that we look at it not as work-life balance, but more as work-life harmony. We have gotten to a position, and we are still striving to get to a position in our own families where it's harmonious. Our kids are involved in what we're doing. They understand that this is more of a lifestyle. It's not a separation between work and home. It's
good.
like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And it's a harmony of, okay, now we're going over here to deal with this thing, and then we're going to go grab a bite to eat as a family, and then we're going to have some family time at home, and then I'm going to go back over here and, they just understand, and so they get involved how they can, when they can, and it's not like a shocker necessarily to anybody. It's just like, this is the life we live, and everybody's good with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I actually feel like that's really reassuring because I think that's a lot what our life looks like. But you hear about so many families who do have the routines, and you hear that routines are so good for kids. Kids need routines. And I think when you have this kind of lifestyle, as you referred to it, it sometimes feels like you may set up a routine, but that day you have to do something else. And it's not necessarily bad. You could we bring our kids along and they see the work that Jacob does and they see the work that we do. And I think it has made them very flexible and it's made them hard workers even at a young age. But sometimes I worry because of the narrative of other families you're like, oh, you're doing a really good job. Like, you have really good kids. Like, you're a really good mom or you're a really good dad. And so, yeah, I think it's very reassuring to hear that. And you said that your kids are involved in what you do.
My kids are W-2 employees of our business.
Tell me all about that.
All three of them are. And I mean, we can dive into that now if you want to.
Yes.
I'm totally fine
let's
with
go down
that.
that route.
And when did you start them as W-2 employees? What are the benefits of that? I want to know everything.
Yeah. Okay. So legally, the federal government says that your kids have to be able to perform the tasks that you're paying them for. And those tasks have to be things within the business that are reasonable that they can do, and they're tasks that somebody would have to do.
Today, my baby is our model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Can we
Of course.
We joked
Of
about
course.
that.
But if you were saying that your 3-year-old was mowing the lawns at your properties, obviously that could be called into question. So there's a reasonable amount of clarity that you have to bring to what it is that you're asking your kids to do. You don't want to hire them too soon for tasks that they can't actually do. So my kids, I hired them. Well, they're several years apart, but my youngest is 10 now. We hired her probably when she was 7, maybe 6 or 7. And the girls, I have 2 girls and a boy. The boy is the oldest, and obviously he can get a lot more involved in the physical day-to-day tasks that need to be done, which has been fantastic along the lines of the harmony conversation that we were having, because I can bring him alongside me as I'm doing things and teach him all the things that most 15-year-olds would never have any idea how to do. And because he's come alongside me for the last 6 or 7 years as an employee, but also as my son, I can walk him through, this is how you install electrical outlets. This is how you handle this plumbing situation. This is how you communicate with tenants. This is how we use systems on the back end so you can, operate those. All those things kind of help to develop them. But we hired them and we pay them their age, basically. So when my son was 13, he made $13 an hour. When he turned 14, he got a raise of $1. Same thing with the girls.
Yeah, they limit that also. So it's
do.
like based on their age and based on what it is they're doing, you have
Reasonable
to pay them
for the tasks.
Yeah, the compensation has to be reasonable.
I can't pay my son $75 an hour to pick up sticks in the yard, obviously, but
big sticks.
yeah, exactly. The benefits to that, obviously, we just talked about the one that kind of creates harmony and an opportunity to learn for the kids, but also the tax benefits are tremendous when you can hire your kids. If you have a sole member LLC, you're not in a partnership, you are the sole owner of it, or you collectively, if you're husband and wife, are sole owners, you can hire your kids, you can pay them up to $16,100 as of 2026. Now, this is all just information that I've gathered. It's not legal information. It's not accounting information. If you're listening to this, go find out from your accountant details, because I don't want to be responsible for saying something that you take as the truth and you do it and it's wrong. So this is what I've learned. And
That was
I
like a
believe it to
side
be
effect
true.
pitch that they have like on when you get medicine.
Yeah.
That was like your side effect pitch. Like,
May cause.
Yeah.
Consult your doctor before taking any.
I've said that on the podcast several times because I'm just concerned that I'm going to say something. They're like, that's not right, And so I want to have kind of a caveat to what I say. So you can pay your kid up to $16,100 a year. You can also, because they're W-2 employees, set up a Roth IRA that they can pay $7,500 per year into for their own retirement. And that's tax-free for them. The employment income, the $16,100, is tax-free for them, and it comes off of our total income for the year of what we bring in. So if we bring in $150,000 and I pay them $10,000 each, it just reduced our effective income by $30,000. Now we only made $120,000. So we only have to pay taxes on that. That's kind of the basis for how it works. So all three of our kids are W-2 employees within the company. And I don't remember exactly where we were going with that particular topic. Do you?
I want to know how being an entrepreneur has affected your kids, and if it's good, if it's bad, and maybe your family as a whole too.
Mm-hmm. You have kind of a more of a short-term story to this with regard to your boys and how you had to kind of explain to them, Dad's going to disappear for a while.
So for me, they weren't young. My boys were, it was 2 years ago. So Brett would have been right around 15 or 16, and Dylan would have been around 10 or 11. I was working a full-time job, just doing that. That's what I knew to do. I was going to college. I had a lot of success at that employer and stuff. Great company, nothing against the company, but I left that job to just nosedive into real estate. And so then the boys had to see, like, Dad was going to just not be working a job anymore and have a business, and that was fun. And it took sacrifice, because before that, I had to disappear for like a year because I'm still working a full-time job, researching and studying real estate, and then working real estate in the morning, at night. After I got home, it was just up at 4:30, and then I wasn't done till 9:30 at night. Wow. So I told him, I said, I'll still be around, but I said, I got to dig into this to build this thing so that it's ready for when I leave, because I've still got to provide. And so I think they saw that challenge of taking that leap and taking the risk to become that thing and to change what I was doing. And I think that has inspired both boys. It's funny, there's moments I've almost had, you're frustrated, but you're excited. My youngest already understands, like, school matters because you have to learn to work with kids, work with people, But he also understands it really doesn't mean anything about success. So he was very quick to pick up on that. And so having a conversation around that, but they're starting to register, like, you don't need to go to school, go to college, get a degree, go get a job, work 50 years, and retire at the same company. That's not how your life has to look. If you want to build something and grow and you put the work in, take the risk, and really try hard, you can make it happen. And so Jake and I have even got the boys started a small business. They're doing landscaping, power washing, a lot of exterior work. So they're just starting out doing those things. But so that gave him the entrepreneurial bug. And he learned
So
very
like your
quick.
sons together.
Yeah. So
Oh my
our
gosh.
sons are in a partnership.
That's like the sweetest generational friendship thing ever.
We're like family.
Yeah, we are at this point.
I'm almost married to him.
That's a whole nother conversation that we should talk about, is the whole partnership concept.
Yeah,
But
that would be a good episode.
That's
But it's
probably
been
not a today thing.
it's been really cool watching that. And now my youngest sees his brother. So my youngest watches me, but he watches his brother, I think, more because his brother's cool. So my youngest, my 13-year-old's like, he's thinking about ideas. He's already door knocked. So my neighbor had a lemonade stand out front. And he's like, let's go market. So he runs around and door knocks to let people know there is a lemonade stand down the street. And I was like, that's really cool. And then he's talking to me about a mobile car wash. He's like, if I set up a power wash rig on a truck, and he's like, I drove to people's houses and I washed their cars. So they clearly caught that bug.
Yeah.
So it is very exciting, and I'm very proud of them. So it'll be interesting to see where they go.
So we both have a 7-year-old boy, and this happened last week where I was about to sit down and play a game with him, and sure enough, I got the call, and I was like, oh gosh, I gotta go. Sorry, bud, we gotta put this on pause. And as I was leaving, I was wondering, is this experience, is he going to feel bitter about this? Obviously we can do our best to prime and talk about this, but have you guys ever had this moment where you're with your kids, something comes up, or maybe it's this big fish that you're chasing, and you've just decided, I'm not going to chase that right now. Like I need to be home, or this I gotta let this one go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Collectively,
That's
yes.
a good question.
Yeah. There are regularly opportunities for you to make a choice where your values lie, where opportunity to be a good father, to be involved in your kid's life, is more important than the next deal that you're going to get, or dealing with something that may have some weight to it. In fact, I wrote down, and I'll bring this up at the end again, but one of the things that I think on and talk about a lot is don't sweat the small stuff, and it's almost all small stuff.
Yeah.
Right? When we get down the road and we look back on that major thing that we thought at the time was so major, really not so much. But to counteract that, I also would say you only have a certain amount of opportunity with your kids. And that's a major reason why I decided personally, and I can talk a little bit about my story with my kids. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. I was an engineer as well for quite some time leading up to me quitting. I was already managing like 40 units while I was still an engineer. And that engineering position required that I work days, nights, an on-call rotation. I was working 100 plus hours a week, barely sleeping at all. Something had to give. So my story is almost an opposite of what Sean's was, in that I was already so busy that it was a major relief for me to give up that full-time W-2 salary to come out of it and go into business. And it almost helped to align me with my kids more so because I had the time to do it and I could bring them alongside. The thing that I would encourage folks to do, you guys and anybody listening, is bring your kids along with you as much as possible. If you think it's not, that they're not going to gain something from it, I can pretty well guarantee you're wrong. They're gonna. If you can take them to an opportunity where you're signing papers for a new property, they'll gain something from it. If you can take them to go fix a clogged drain at one of your properties, they're going to gain something from it. They learn from everything that you do and they see you do it. So rather than separate yourself from your children when property issues arise or when you need to go take care of something, if you can bring one of them along or a couple of them along with you, more times than not, there's so much value in that, even more so than the thing that you're going to do. Yeah. It creates relationship, interest, excitement in the entrepreneurial mind. 2 of my 3 kids are very, very entrepreneur minded. Levi, which we already talked about, and my youngest is she sews and crochets for kids at school. So she takes orders. She taught herself. She comes home, makes these things, and sells them to these kids at school. And she makes, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this on the podcast, but she makes hundreds of dollars a year making stuff for these other kids. And it's kind of, then she's like, well, how can I make it better? Well, I'm going to get an Etsy shop. I'm going to start doing photography. I'm going to put these all on there, and then I can make them as they come in. So it broadens my clientele beyond just the school system and stuff like that, you know? So my kids have become very entrepreneurially minded. And I think that a lot of that stems from us getting them involved in the things that we're doing and making them feel like they're a team member, not a child. There are times that, you know, you are a child and you should enjoy your childhood and have fun and play, and we can do all those things. I'm all for that. But I just think that we've created opportunity with them in making them team members. They understand that they're W-2 employees and that sort of thing. But like Friday nights, we have like a team huddle where we get together and we talk about business things. What's happening in the business? What offers did we make this week? What does our income look like?
Wow.
You know, what are we investing in? What are you guys investing in? Because we have them invest in some of our properties. So they're owners, you know, and so they take more responsibility, more interest in what's happening. For instance, I have a triplex in the Fort Wayne area. My kids each own a portion of that triplex. So I have 3 kids, 3 units. They've invested in those units. And so they're curious, how's that unit doing?
Can you break that down for me? Like, what ages were they? Did they understand? When did they start to understand that kind of language? And how did they invest? Where's their money coming from?
This is not going to be common for everybody, probably. But my grandparents are pretty wealthy. And they, at one point, my grandparents on my mother's side gifted our kids some money.
This is the grandparents, just for context. We live in the same small town, and everyone kind of knows everyone. These are the grandparents who lived in that very small house by the railroad tracks in Continental.
No.
Yeah? No?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just thinking, wow, they lived so modestly.
Yeah, they both did.
Okay.
So story is very similar.
Okay.
But no, this would be on my mom's side. That's my dad's
Okay.
parents, the Tracys. And no, my mom's side, they lived in Iowa. They were farmers, but they did buy a lot of farm ground. They lived very modestly. My grandpa was an animal doctor. So he made very, very good money for a number of years. And they invested it very well, not in rental properties, but in farm ground. And if you pay cash for farm ground, there's a lot of money to be made in it. You just can't take loans on it, or there's really no money to be made. And so they gifted my kids the maximum amount to gift 1 year, which at that time I think was $18,000.
Wow.
Or just over that, maybe $18,500, something like that. My kids were still pretty little. They didn't understand, and we didn't want to present that to them. Mm-hmm. So at the time, we said, Grandma and Grandpa gifted you some money. I think we gave them $100. They were still pretty young. Here's $100. You can choose you need to, give your tithe on this, and then you can choose to spend the rest of it however you see fit. The remaining amount, we opened Roth IRAs for them. They were W-2 employees, so we maxed out their Roth IRAs using $7,000 of that money. The remaining amount we put into that property in Fort Wayne, equal amounts. So they each put in $11,000, I believe, into that property. And so they're partial owners. They get a dividend from that every single year. We pay them an interest payment on it at the end of the year. And then when we decide to sell that, whatever our profit from it is, they will get a percentage of whatever the equity on that property is. So that's how we set that up.
I love it.
That's how we set that one up. And we've done a lot of things over the years to kind of we want to create wealth and security for our kids for their future and establish legacy in that way. But we want to teach them and help them to understand what it is that we're doing, not just here's a bunch of money when you turn 18, good luck. Mm-hmm. There's so many problems that come out of that kind of behavior. And so we want to be a blessing to them and encourage them, but I feel like we can be even more of an encouragement and blessing by helping them understand what it is that we're doing and not just doing it all for them. So that's what we've tried to do. Like I said, we have Friday night meetings that we talk through all this kind of stuff. We've brought them on as team members. And by doing that, they feel a sense of ownership and they want to be involved. Dad, you're going to do something to the property. Can I come? It happens all the time. They're not saying, oh, Dad's leaving again. He's got to go take care of something. We'll just do this later. I'll go play by myself. No, it's, it's like, hey, we got something to go take care of. You're just as much involved in this as I am. Let's go, you know. So
and I don't think you give yourself enough credit because you really do that with the kids. Like you kind of take them everywhere.
I do take the kids with me a lot of places. Sometimes I worry that I'm breeding bitterness or burnout too early at their ages. I mean, they're 7 and 5. So
sometimes I wonder if that's because you grew up in ministry, and I think there is like a different kind of in ministry, I should say, when you have a parent in ministry, it's like your parent is always going and serving other people. And then the kids are like, hey, don't forget about me. But I think it's different. As you're saying, it's like you're bringing the kids along, which I think in Hope will create a different kind of like appreciation and passion in them because they are involved and because they're coming alongside.
That's an interesting example that you give because I was a pastor's kid as well. And my dad was in ministry for many, many, many years. He handled it a lot the same way, where if he had to be at a church in another state to minister, he took us with him, and if he had to go, there were many times that we would even go to the hospital. People were very sick or they were even on their deathbed.
Wow.
And, he would bring us along with discretion, obviously, but we were very involved, I in particular, in everything that was going on. So I felt a sense of ownership, and I had kind of a relationship on a little bit different level, multi-level relationship, I guess. It's not just dad. It's also like, what are we doing? I want to be involved in what's happening. So,
yeah.
Would you say that you have to, are you naturally positive in your endeavors, or do you have to put a face on it?
For me, anyways, I've got to maintain a certain degree of optimism all the time.
Okay.
You have to kind of see struggle.
Sorry, y'all.
You have to see the difficulty as an opportunity more than a problem. Sometimes it's easier than other days, but yeah, you have to have a degree of optimism. And I tell my boys all the time, like, you can't run off feeling. If you run off feeling, you're going to stop, you're going to give up, you're going to get hung up or snagged. So having a positive attitude throughout it makes it easier to push through. So that's a good example. It helps out with getting through those moments.
Some landlords have a rule about not renting to friends and family. Do you have to find yourself that you have to put on a Jake and Sean landlord hat versus a friend Sean, friend Jake hat?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's, for me, I don't rent to family. That one I haven't crossed yet, and probably still won't. Now, what's great is if I have one, and if they're asking, I'll get with Jake or one of the other people we know in town here. Be like, you guys have any units? I have somebody looking, because I just can't. If I rent to family and I evict family for business, like that's a tough area to navigate.
Yeah, it's so hard.
And so I'm not even gonna do it. I value the relationship too much to do that, so I just don't go there. Friends, I don't do friends either in apartments. I have one in right now. One I inherited that I go to church with, and so I went ahead and worked with a friend of mine. But yeah, we sat down, to your point, and we had a very real conversation in regards to, friend Sean's over here, and we're still friends no matter what. But when we're having interactions around the property and the rent, it's like, that's the business. That's different. There are procedures and policies we follow, and you're going to be treated just the same way as all the other tenants of the properties, because that's the business side. And then right away, I had to have a conversation because he had just moved out of his folks' house, and so his mom texted me about something that she thought the property needed, and I was gracious, and I was just being like, because I do love their family, they're great people, so I just had to kindly let her know, like, he's the one that will need to contact me in regards to the property. Just letting her know, like, I value you guys, I love you guys, but John's gonna have to talk with me. He's on the lease. This is the policy. It's nothing personal. And so, but that's just how it has to be. But
similarly, in my situation, I don't rent to family, and I've had to have quite a few conversations that have, I think, ended in some offense being taken. But I try to make it as clear as possible to my family that I love you. I want our relationship to remain strong. And there's always that possibility if I rent to you or your child that I have to be the same jerk to them as I do to anybody else. The policy remains the same, and if they're not following the rules, I have to deal with that. And I don't want that to come between us as family and our relationship. We've already had a lot of strains in relationship because of family working together. And so I've had to have that conversation with several of my cousins about their children stepping out and wanting to get their own home. And I'm like, I'm happy. I've said several times to them, listen, if this is a last hope, they have to have a place. There's nowhere else to go. And I can do that for them. Fine, we'll work on that. But I want it to be the last resort. You need to go find something else for them first. With friends, I basically just explain to them, and I have conversation. A lot of renters are younger. Not always, but in our case, especially with apartments, it's like a kid gets out of their home and they want to rent their own apartment. And so for us, it's been a lot of younger kids who I have a relationship with their parents. And so I've had to have conversations with both them and with their parents as friends and say, listen, I have to be the same jerk to you that I would be to somebody else in a situation where you're not abiding by the rules. And I don't intend to be a jerk, but I have to lay down the law. The systems and processes that we've set up, they have to remain the same. And I can't give you grace and then not this other person. Your rent can't come halfway through the month when I expect this person's to come on the first, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, we've established that. But I have rented to friends or children of friends, but I definitely draw that line with family, and it's for the reason that I want to keep family and continue to have a great relationship, and that just kind of muddies the water and makes things complicated.
I can't imagine you being a jerk. You referred to yourself as that
I
5 times. I'm like, wow, Jake a jerk?
I can be. So we were actually having off camera, we were having a conversation about kind of the positivity and negativity or pessimism and what's the opposite of that?
Maintaining an optimistic attitude.
Optimism, there you go.
Versus pessimism.
I'm a lot more of a pessimist by nature. I call it realist, leaning towards pessimist, but I can very quickly get to a place where I'm not very nice anymore. Like, you can push my buttons to a point where it's like, okay.
It's good cop, bad cop.
I tend to be bad cop.
I'm customer relations. If I can't, I try to come in soft, work with the person first, and try to get us to where we need to be. If I can't make that happen, we can escalate things. I'll be like, I'll have you contact Jake. Jake's direct, black and white. Here it is. Here's what it's not. I don't have time for your feelings. This is what's happening.
Wow.
And so,
but I can handle things I do handle things similarly to start.
Yeah.
Like I show grace, I show understanding, I work with people and explain things and try to
So
have
you're
as
like the
much
teacher and he's like the principal. Like, if
am.
you get to Jake,
Yeah,
you're in
that's fair.
trouble.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm superintendent. I'm like,
yeah.
bam.
He does.
Lay down the law.
He works. He tries to. He starts with the people for sure. But he's got the capability to be that stern. Boom.
Just a lot more
And
direct.
sometimes I struggle with that. I struggle to be the people pleaser, the nice guy. I've gotten a lot better at it. My skin's gotten thicker, like we were talking about earlier, where I can just kind of separate. Like, no, this is just what it is. I'm sorry you're frustrated.
Yeah.
But
It's a lot about building that muscle. Again, it's not something that you necessarily are comfortable with right out of the gate, but you learn to deal with situations again and again and again.
Yeah.
And over time, you learn this is the best way to handle this.
Yeah.
I started out gentle, but if that's not
That's so
working,
good.
it's time to transition to something more.
You
And
actually,
if I have to get stern,
it's a great
I'm gonna.
point. You actually
Yeah.
create headaches for yourself by trying to create too many avenues to make things easier or to kind of resolve it in a manner that seems good. You'll actually set yourself up for more headaches down the road by not just following, this is what it says, this is what we do.
That black and white mentality tends to help. Not having that gray area in this particular industry helps tremendously.
Yeah.
You have a right and a wrong. Yeah. This is how we do it. This is not how we do it. And if you make that clear, it just simplifies things for you along the way so much.
You're in the business of educating adults. You're teaching adults.
Whoa. So what you're saying is that you guys have policies, and are these policies laid out in the lease? Are they laid out in your applications when people apply? Where are these policies, and how do you communicate it very clearly to your tenants or to the people so that they understand?
Now keep in mind, Sean and I both run our own separate real estate companies. We own things together on the commercial side, but most of our residential rentals and things we own separately under our own umbrellas, LLCs, that sort of thing. So you want to
Yeah, mine's a combination of a couple things. Primarily the lease. When it comes down to what's a go or no goers, you're talking legality. That has got to be on the lease.
Okay.
So all the heavy important stuff goes on the lease. But you can have emails, documents, things like that around to kick over to them, welcome guides, whatever that is. When you onboard a tenant, sometimes we have face-to-face conversations during the lease signing. And I'm just like, I just set my expectations out verbally, and then have it make sure that anything that's really critical is on that lease. So kind of a combination of two for me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
For me, I have an additional document also that I send to every tenant that's called Rules and Expectations. It's 5 pages, and it breaks down everything from where they're allowed to park, what they're allowed to have outside the unit, what we expect as far as rent is concerned, how they communicate with us. Like, it's broken down by section, and it's 5 pages long, and they can refer back to it. We use an online platform, and we drop that into their Documents tab on that platform so they can refer back to it anytime they want.
They read it line by line.
I doubt it.
Follow every single step.
They do not.
Every single protocol.
So that
always
sounds like
works.
something that is very hard to put together. Did you put that together yourself? Did someone put it together for you? Did you take it from some other property management company?
So when I built that, it was all manual. I did it line by line and just kind of thought through the process of how do I expect every tenant to handle things.
How would you do it now?
AI.
Right.
All day long. All day long. Because then you can
ChatGPT.
just,
Oh my
you can
gosh,
just
it's
copy and
amazing.
paste that whole thing and tweak it to your liking
Yeah.
over here in a
Okay.
Word document. And, in 20, 30 minutes, you can have the whole thing built. It took
Okay,
me
great.
days to build that,
Yeah.
That
I
sounds
continue
overwhelming to
use.
me, but it
it's
sounds
so
very
simple
useful.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So simple now. But at least then you've established some sort of conversation. If they ask you, how do I handle this? Well, this is how we handle it, but you can go refer to that or any other question that you have in that Rules and Expectations document that we dropped in your account.
Anytime you can create that accountability between you and the tenant is good.
Yeah.
And that's a really great way to do that.
I had someone come up to me the other day. They're thinking about renting out their house, and they asked me for one of my leases. And I said, you can just find one on the internet. You don't need mine. And he said, wait, how is that? Like, is that legal? Is that how is that lease verified? Can you answer that? Like, can you just put together any sort of lease that you want, get anything offline?
People
can.
should have lawyers.
You can.
We do have you need to say we do have a
Oh,
lawyer
yes,
that
I'm
looks
sorry, yes,
over our
we
lease.
do,
This is
we
not
do.
our situation.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, sure,
But
sure.
I guess
you're
for,
saying for
for
other
the
people.
average person who's like, well, I'd like to rent out my house and downsize or whatever, keep my property.
Court systems will recognize even things as simple as documents that are written on a napkin.
Yeah.
This person agrees to this, and this person agrees to the same thing. We both sign it. It's a
Okay.
legally binding contract, technically.
Your only caveat to that information is making sure you're following the law in your state for a rental property and a lease agreement. Otherwise, they can punch holes through your made-up lease that you've got. But, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I would say, if at all possible, communicate with an attorney, have them give you some documents that they've already reviewed that kind of hit all the high points for things that you're going to need in a lease in your state, obviously, because they're going to be different state to state, maybe even county to county, depending on the situation. And so that's what I would recommend. But yes, it can be as simple as you get some lease agreement off of the internet, you review it, you make some changes to it to kind of fit your need, and then use that. But it wouldn't be my first recommendation, I would say, but it is still doable.
Okay, we're gonna jump subjects a little.
Let's do it.
Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know what is the best, wisest way when we are investing into rental properties. What loans should we use? What is the best way to invest?
That's a really open question. I don't have an answer for that one. It's dependent on the individual. So you're talking investing strategies, because that would have to do directly with how you financed a deal or if you paid a deal off entirely.
Okay, well maybe that's the question. So say if someone has cash, is it always best to use the cash or should you get a loan? I think those are like the kind of things different. I feel like different financial gurus have different opinions.
Yeah. So if it would depend too on strategy though. If your strategy is no debt, then you would pay cash for that property and keep it, and then your cash flow would be higher, obviously, because it's paid off. But if you were trying to scale, I would say the opposite. So you would take that cash you have in the bank and you would spread it out and you would buy 5 properties. And you would let the bank lend you the rest of the money and own 5 pieces of real estate. So you'd have a lot more capital because you've secured the assets by using the bank's money.
I think I really struggle to understand the benefits of scaling, or maybe why. I know scaling means more. But I think something that we've talked about is like, when is scaling beneficial? Because, right, you scale and then you hire people and then you're paying them. And if you just did it yourself, would it balance out? Like, how do you discern when is scaling good?
This is so the first thing to do before you.
I think this is also the point that we're probably at, which is why we're like, I don't even know how to ask this question.
This one's easy because this has less about all these strategies that you're asking about in regards to financing and scaling. You guys are asking a question about your purpose, your why, and your goals behind the business.
Let me say something before he digs into this. I think people should think along the lines of which person are you? Are you a numbers person or are you a peace of mind person? Everybody identifies kind of differently in that regard.
What do you mean by a peace of mind person?
Are you comfortable having 5 properties that are completely paid off, that you know very well, that you don't stress about a mortgage on, that, you know, your cash flow may be $100 a month rather than $1,000 a month, but you're okay with that because I'm a numbers person and I know if I have 20 doors that I could grow rather than 1 door that's paid off. Like it's almost more of a mental game.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I? I need to identify what my life goals are. And then am I a numbers person or am I a peace of mind person? And from that decision, you can kind of build a strategy around growth or stability. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead with what you were.
I like that question a lot.
What you were saying.
So if you're going to be starting to dig into this, you're talking about developing a strategy around what makes sense for you guys. That comes from what it is you're looking to do. Whether you want, like Jake and I have talked, maybe you're not a 150 door plan. Maybe that's not your strategy, is to have 100 properties. Your strategy might be to have a smaller portfolio, like Jake was saying, less to worry about, less stress, less management, but maybe better cash flow because you're paying cash for each property. And maybe you don't like carrying debt. Maybe that's not in your strategy. But when we started our business, we went back and looked at our vision and our why behind what we were doing, what we wanted it to look like. And it's funny Jake said that because I'm a numbers guy. So for me, scaling wasn't scary because I could follow the numbers and make sense of buying more. So we went 25 doors up in 2.5 years, and I don't know that that's the right strategy for everybody. But it was buy, and I'm numbers, so it made sense. I got to keep it in control. We didn't have to get into it.
I think I'm realizing I'm not a numbers person because that sounds terrifying to me.
It does to a lot of people, and there are good avenues for that. Like if that's not you, that's okay.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people that it makes sense for them to go that route, and for a lot of people it doesn't. It's more of a lifestyle choice. You know, if you want to grow and do this solely based on business and numbers, then it's a business choice. You're driven to grow this where, you know, you may have 100 units that are worth $12 million, or you could have 5 units that are worth $1 million. They cash flow well, they pay your income, they give you freedom to go do what you want to do. It's not overwhelming. That's great for a lot of people. Some people want to be in that space of, I want 100 doors, I want 300 doors, I want, you know, and they just keep building and growing and putting teams together. And we know people that are on both ends of that spectrum. I can think of some just even right now that like their world is, I got to go get more. I'm building, I'm growing, I want this thing. I have a vision for where I want to take this and grow it to. And the only way to do that is with debt. so to speak, whether that's an investor or a bank or whatever. But then there's a lot of people who just want to do it like house hacking. They want to buy a property, live in it, maybe buy a duplex. That's how you guys started, right? Yeah, you bought a duplex, you lived in one side, you rented the other side out. It kind of paid for a mortgage, or if you guys didn't have a mortgage, it put a little money in your pocket to pay your bills for that month.
Yeah.
And then after a few years, you're like, we've outgrown this. Let's move on to the next thing. We'll keep that one, and boom, boom, boom. A lot of people do that. But it almost is like, what phase of life are you in? A lot of people take the same avenue to get to a certain point. You'll find as you get further down the road and look back that, you start with one and then you grow it to 3. You started with a single family home, and then you grow to a duplex, and then maybe a quad, and then, let's dabble in the commercial. I can buy a 6 unit, and then I can buy a 12 unit, and you just most people are that kind of investment strategy. Very few times do you find somebody who's like, well, I bought 180 units last year just because I didn't know there was anything that it was any different. Like those are my friends. That's what they're doing. So that's what I did, It's much more rare. Most people are, very slow and steady, and it kind of all follows the same path.
And you guys could put a plan together for a 1, 3, and 5 year. Where would you guys like to see yourselves in 5 years?
Yeah.
That way, what you've got now is you've got vision and clarity on a target. That helps you to strategize. And then the answers to these questions in regards to financing strategies and things start to make a lot more sense because it all aligns with the 5-year plan. And you work backwards from there.
There's definitely something to be said for the phase of life that you're in, and whether or not you decide to take on debt based on that alone. Like, you'll hit a point in your life where you start thinking, maybe I want to pay off a lot of these so that I don't have that debt and that extra overhead. I've kind of come into that phase a little bit more recently, where we paid off a whole bunch of properties. You can even sell a couple of properties and use the value of those properties to then go pay off a couple of other properties, And so we have actually paid off, I don't even know, quite a few of ours. And there's almost a sense of relief when you do that. You're like, I don't have a mortgage on that anymore.
Yeah.
It's cash flowing like 4 times what it was before, or whatever the case might be. So, phase of life, I think, is something that will kind of determine what direction you want to go with your investments.
I think that kind of answers my next question, but I would still be interested in your guys' answer. So you mentioned a mortgage. Dave Ramsey is like, you pay off your mortgage first. He says that you shouldn't even have investments before you have your mortgage paid off. Do you guys think you should pay your mortgage off right away, or what's your perspective on that?
Oh, goodness. If I could go back. So I'm going to refer to my primary residence in regards to this question around paying off my mortgage.
Yes, that's what I
directly.
meant, like primary residence mortgage.
If I could go back, I would have did that totally differently. So I took out a mortgage on our house. Gosh, it would have been 4 years ago or so now, and we were at the 3% interest. But we didn't want debt. It was kind of a personal thing. We just didn't want personal debt. So we worked hard and went to work on paying that off, got it paid off in, I think, around 1.5 years or 2 years or something. Because I'd come in with a substantial down payment.
That's awesome.
Which set us up good for that. And then my wife has the same desire not to have personal debt. So we killed that thing. However, that was before I got into real estate. So, Sean, now, looking back, I would have held that note, and I would have took the money we had in the bank to pay that house off, and we'd have been buying properties.
Okay.
I would have double the units I have now if we had just took that and started buying more.
Ooh.
So looking back, I wouldn't have paid my mortgage off.
Okay.
I would have.
I'm in the same boat. I am holding a mortgage on my home because I'm at 2.375% interest. It's a 15-year note.
Okay, so what if someone has a higher interest, like a 6%? Would you say they should pay it off?
It's case dependent.
Okay.
I wish I could say yes or no. The thing you have to remember about Dave Ramsey is he drives the points home that he does because it really all comes back to a behavioral pattern. He's trying to get people to understand that your behavior on a regular basis is poor, and that's leading to bad things, just to make it simple.
Yes.
And he puts structure in place around that because that's what people need. You need this step, then this one, then this one. That's great for most people to start. You should follow those steps to get to a certain point. But you kind of, as you learn and grow, especially if you have a certain investor mindset, you kind of outgrow those thoughts and understand financials a little bit better. And so it doesn't always make sense to handle yourself that way.
Yeah.
It does up to a certain point while you're building those muscles,
Yeah.
while you're learning the principles that he puts in place. And then once you've established those and it's like a no-brainer, this is just how we do things now. We don't have to think about it. Okay, now we need to start looking at what avenues we might be able to invest our money more wisely. And sometimes
That's good.
requires debt. So I have the cash to go pay off my personal mortgage. I'm not, because we are actively looking for some larger investments.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Way
my
better.
mortgage is less than 2.5% interest.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a no-brainer. I could put it into a high yield savings account and make more than that on it. My
Right.
mortgage is paid and I'm still making a little bit more money on it.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the situation that you're in.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey's program is great.
Yeah.
And it's awesome for the masses, like a lot, just normal people that are trying to get ahead and trying to change their financial picture. Dave Ramsey's awesome.
Yeah.
Follow that, work that program. But I think you kind of graduate. People will be like, well, you guys, if you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says all these things, right? Invest, buy property, use the bank's money. Dave Ramsey's like, don't use debt, use cash. It isn't that it's this or that, it's both. You Dave Ramsey first. That's going to get you right. That's going to help, like Jake was saying, the mindset.
We had a full episode on this.
Yeah.
First you Dave Ramsey, then you Robert Kiyosaki.
Then you're going to Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
They don't merge. They're not the same. They're not opposing necessarily.
Yeah.
It's get Dave Ramsey done first, get it done right. Then you go over to Robert Kiyosaki when you have that right. Because you can't go into this business mindset financially if you're broke at home with credit cards and debt and all this stuff.
Yeah. We were first introduced to Dave Ramsey through our churches, like when we were both quite young. And so, like, I think my church introduced me to the Dave Ramsey course and like encouraged me to take it when I was probably 15 years old. And so when those principles are ingrained in your mind so young, I actually, because you see the good in them, especially with me like growing up in so much poverty, it was like, oh, like these are really good. And I actually think it can be quite challenging to break out of those once you're in the investment space. So I think this is such an important conversation, because when you hear something like over and over and over again, it's difficult to be like, oh, there's actually a different way and a better way and a wiser way to do this thing. So I appreciate that. Obviously, you guys have you have so much wisdom, you have so much knowledge, and you guys have learned a lot. I would be very interested in what you feel like your biggest failure has been as you have done this. Like you said, you've been doing this for 24 years.
I have.
And you've been doing this for
2.5.
Wow. Totally two different ends of the spectrum, but you guys both have so much knowledge. So what has been like the biggest pitfall or the thing where you're like, oh, would do that over again if I could?
Do you have something in mind?
Gosh, for me, I think mine's kind of a general one. More about I got excited when I started this and I bought. If it was in front of me, I bought it. So I think looking back, I should have and would have pivoted into being more selective about purchasing properties would be my only thing.
So what properties did you purchase where you're like, ooh, that was not good, and why? And what different properties would you have wished you captured? Like what qualities did the good and the bad ones have?
So I got a couple early on that were real affordable, and they were good cash flowers. That's the thing. So for me, part of my strategy was cash flow. I wanted decent cash flow. And oftentimes that strategy, especially in a market like it is now, that comes with buying lower cost units that maybe aren't the highest quality or real good quality, that still have decent rents and are decent units, and you buy those and they cash flow well. So if it was in front of me, I bought it. I think I may have gone a little bit higher tier on quality, paid up a little bit more, and took a little bit of a hit on the cash flow just to have healthier units when I started getting into the space.
And when you say cash flow, what I'm thinking you mean is that like your mortgage or the payment that you would be paying for them monthly would cost more than like buying it outright or a smaller monthly fee.
Yeah, so
compared to the rent that you're getting paid. Yeah.
Your cash flow comes in. That's the rent that comes in each month. You've got your mortgage, your interest, all your insurance, all your payments that got to go out just for that unit or that property. Those got to come out. Whatever's left at the bottom is your cash flow. Typically, you'll have a little bit of a capital fund that you're putting back on for repairs and things. All those costs come out. So I was always trying to target a certain amount of cash flow after all my expenses per door. was kind of my target. And I was able to do that and hit my numbers, but it came at a cost.
What number did you try to hit?
I was shooting for between $200 and $300 a door.
Okay.
Which you can't do that in a lot of places, but in our area you can still reach it, but it just depends on the unit and the location and those kind of things.
$200, $300 a door.
Which is why people
because
want
you're
to scale
still
up.
paying on it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
it would be much higher if there was no mortgage and
Got
stuff.
it.
I'd have
Yes.
way better cash flow. I went scale strategy. So basically it's a numbers game. I tell you couldn't buy one and shoot for $200 a door and have a business and have a good income. You would just be, but when you scale and you take the 2 to 3 times 25 doors, it starts to build.
Yeah.
It starts to work, and you can pay for repairs and still have some income. But yeah, that would be, looking back, I wouldn't really call it a failure, but I would definitely pivot my strategy looking back.
That's good.
For me, I went through the 2003 to 2005 boom. I went through the 2008 to 2010 bust. And I had a gap of time in there where I didn't do much real estate. I moved back from Arizona. I would say, as I'm thinking through this, the thing that I would probably have changed was when I was in Arizona going through the 2008 to 2010 crisis. Just before that, we were buying a lot of property and remodeling them and flipping them, basically, these properties. And I think I saw the writing on the wall that banks were lending over 100% of the purchase price of the home or the appraised value of a home, which is incredibly foolish. And it's a lot of the reason why the industry collapsed and failed during that time period. And I saw it and I kind of ignored it and just kept buying and buying and buying. And I was able to get out of almost all of the properties that we owned and still make a profit on them. The last property that we owned, we lost our butts on. We ended up moving into it. We refinanced it. It appraised for, we purchased it for, I think, 150. Maybe we had 160 in it when we refinanced. It appraised for 220. And when the market crashed in 2008, we had it reappraised because we realized we wanted to move back closer to family. We were going to sell that property, and it appraised for 110. So it lost $110,000 in 1 year. And we owed 160 on it at the time. And so we had to go to the bank and talk to them about doing a short sell on the property, which basically just means that the bank agrees to take less than is owed on the mortgage. Wow. And so we sold it for 115, I think. And they forgave the debt of the rest of it, and we moved back here, which was a godsend for us, but it destroyed our credit for a period of time. And so I came out of that situation. I was a realtor in Arizona at that time. I did not get my realtor's license back here in Ohio. It kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and I pushed pause on my real estate career for probably close to 10 years. And we had kids in that process. My wife was getting her degree to be a nurse. I just had to establish some sort of income. And so I got a job and started building a career in that field, which I wasn't passionate about, but it was, that was probably the hardest thing I think that we went through at the time, because we had some other businesses out there that failed. We were in debt up to our eyeballs at that time. We moved back here into a garage. You can listen to our story. We talk about our story at the beginning of the podcast that we started here. I think episode 1 and 2, Sean and I both kind of talk about our stories and stuff, but that's all in there. But yeah, I would say that's probably the most difficult thing. And you have down here greatest accomplishment. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you say would be your greatest accomplishment?
I think right off the start, when I first got into real estate,
Go, baby. Go, baby's done.
I think when I first got into real estate, mine was more, not really a property story, more of a networking story. I made $9,000 in 45 seconds. So that would be my biggest win.
Well, you gotta tell us. We need to know how, because I want to replicate it.
Jake, you're up, Jake.
Okay.
You don't have to tell us how to replicate it. We are canceling Sean if he doesn't tell us how.
I'll show you how to make $9,000 every 45 seconds.
I'll never forget that. I almost dropped the phone. I had basically gotten to know people. I got in the space. I spent a lot of time networking before I ever bought my first property. So that was just connecting with people who are in that space. And I got connected to some good people I knew. and then some sellers, obviously. And so I was calling, prospecting for deals, just seeing who's selling, what they're selling. And I had come across property I wasn't ready to buy. I couldn't afford to get it, and I knew somebody that would want that property. And I was on the phone with him. I can't buy that, but I know a guy that might. And so he's like, well, how much do you want? I'm like, well, I just know the other guy I can just connect you to. And he's like, well, usually I pay 3% for that. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I said, that'd be great. I said, you don't have to. And he's like, no, if bring me a buyer and they close on it, we're good. And so that building was, I think, like around 300-something thousand. And so I had made a quick check, and it was a 45-second phone call. Because I had phone with him, and I knew the guy, called the guy. He's like, yep, we're all over that, and it was done.
The value of networking.
It was just knowing the right people and putting the deal together. And so for me, that was a quick. My other one personally is the Montpelier deal, where I had a triplex, and it was an operational project of taking it where it wasn't being run right, and the guy sold it for cheap because he wasn't making any money. When I got in there and saw the numbers, it made a lot of sense. The rents were super low, and he was paying all the utilities. So every month he's going backwards. So it was going in and being like, no, these are market rents. All utilities are included. So we took those up. So it was just an operational appreciation thing where you just go in and change the ops to increase the value. And I did it in phases. So I did a phase of rent increase. Then I did a second phase of rent because it was a substantial increase. And now it's a very profitable unit, and it's a great unit. And we got a great deal on it when we bought it. So that one for me is just kind of an operational win.
And now, as of recently, that particular unit is actually going to be the thing that gets you over the hurdle to buy another 4 units.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're moving on a quad with that one. So
That's awesome.
It is really cool when real estate interacts with real estate deals. But yeah, I'm very excited. But yeah, that would be my biggest win.
So before we go to Jake, is that accomplishment what allowed you to buy your new truck? Because I drove by you the other day, and on the last podcast, you mentioned your old truck.
I'm going to tell that story, but we better let Jake go first on his, because that's going to be like the last thing I'm going to wrap up on.
That's a really fun story.
There's a lot to that.
Believe it or not, I would say my greatest accomplishment has nothing to do with my biggest asset or the thing that I made the most money on. I would say it was the worst property that I ever bought, because it got me back in the game. That's it. It created urgency. It created confidence. It got me back to a place where I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I understand this space. I'm great at this when I'm probably not good at many things. I know I can do this. And that first property is one that we talk about. I talk about that particular unit on episode 3. If anybody wants to go back and listen to that, it was an absolute disaster. I had multiple evictions on that property. I had to remodel it twice. We had horrible experiences. It was a drug house, all kinds of stuff. And all of those things in the moment were catastrophic emotionally, and I struggled through the process. But now looking back on it, that was my greatest accomplishment, just because I started again. It got me back in. And that developed into another one and another one. And before long, it grows into something significant. You just got to get started. I talk about it so much. Drive that point home.
I feel like that's going to be such an encouragement to somebody listening, because it's so true. Like, oftentimes we are in the trenches. It is the hardest thing. And then we look back 10 years later and we're like, oh, that's my biggest accomplishment, or that's the thing that I'm most proud of, or that's why I am where I am today. So hopefully that's a word to somebody.
And I sold that property. I don't own it anymore. I own several, but that one I've already sold. But that property was awful.
Is it in town? Do you ever drive by it?
I just drove by. I just drove you by it.
Showed it. Yeah, we just looked at it.
Yep. It's actually around the corner from another one, a duplex that Sean owns.
Duplex
and we ended up driving by, and I'm like, that's the house that we've talked so much about. And I'm like, it looks good.
It's a good one.
It's not a bad property. It was a bad property when I took it over, but yeah, it just got me back in the game, and so that's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay, the truck. We have to know about the truck.
All right, so
because you're pretty adamant about that, and that wasn't too long ago.
No, I was all about driving
a beat up truck.
So yeah, I had a Jetta that was my daily. I drove that around, drove that for a long time.
What year?
That was a 2010.
Okay.
I think it had 260,000 miles on it or something. Nice. But good car. I'd buy it all over again. Great car. And it was just about, it was done. I should have bought a car years ago. It was just getting to the end of its rope. And so we've been talking about getting something, and it just wasn't the time. I'm not going to do it. I don't spend the money, because if I have money, I buy real estate. So looking back, how I got this truck was because of real estate. So this was a duplex here in town, and it was, I was calling people, asking who's got something for sale. And this was a duplex that was basically an owner and a brother were working on it. They had bought it and were going to work on it, hadn't had time, hadn't gotten to it. So he's going to sell it. So I told him I was interested, I'd love to come see it, went over, saw it. We talked the number, and he tossed out 60. And I was like, it's going to need a lot of work. So I was like, 37.5 or something is what I kicked back. And he's like, okay. And we landed on 42. So I bought this duplex for 42, brick duplex. And I was like, that's good. And it needed a lot of cosmetic stuff inside, paint, carpet, flooring, all that stuff. But it was structurally good. So I had got him, I talked to him. He was more interested in the community, creating housing. Mm-hmm. Now, he didn't need the money. Mm-hmm. So I talked with him. I said, do you mind holding this note?
Sean, we need your networking and wheeling dealing skills. Like, I'm going to bring you along with me everywhere I go.
So I call him and I'm like, hey, let me renovate this. Let me create some more housing right here in our hometown. I said, would you mind holding the seller note while I renovate it? So he's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't need it. So I think I had to take $1,000 earnest money, because I just wanted to do good faith. So I took $1,000 to the title office just to hold it. He held the note. I had an investor come in, because I still needed $40,000 in renovations. The investor floated me a loan, and so I had done 10% on that loan, 2-month payback, because I was going to have it flipped and turned. So he was going to make his money quick. So he floated me the money for the renovations. So the seller's holding the note. I got the $40K in renovations, got the work done, and now I had $85,000 in the duplex. And I knew it was around worth $140, $150. Jake and I went back and forth. He talked about so I was like, I felt pretty good about where that was valuing that at. And so I knew I was going to be able to get a good refi out of it. The car was having issues again right at that period of time, and we got it renovated, and it was time to refi. Well, I had $80,000 in a $150,000 duplex, and I ran some numbers, and even at $100K, that duplex was going to cash flow almost $900 a month. So I did a refi on the duplex that I had no money in. I took out the 80 and then the 20. The 20 bought the truck. The 80 paid back the seller, and the 40 paid back the investor. I had no money in any of this, and I own a truck and a duplex that pays me $900 a month.
Wow.
No money in it.
Incredible.
It's probably my most exciting story to tell.
From now on, whenever we're thinking about something, we just need to call Sean. Whenever we're thinking about buying something, it's like, Sean.
And you know what?
It was a very creative
You know what's funny
deal.
is he was not going to do this deal. He was so scared that it was going to end up being a bad deal. And we talked about it repeatedly. And he gained confidence very quickly through the process. But there were a lot of conversations. He's like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm going to lose my butt on this. This is going to be way more expensive than I thought.
We
just kept talking.
I was going to flip it.
Work.
I was going to flip it, actually. And then we talked about it. And my wife has very quickly caught the bug, so even she's like, we're keeping this. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
And it worked.
Yeah, it did. It's awesome. No money down, bought a truck, $900 a month in cash flow.
Incredible.
It's good until somebody kicked my door in, but...
Somebody kicked your... Oh, at the duplex. The upstairs duplex got slightly damaged.
Send me a text that there's a couple spiders in the kitchen. And then my guy, there was a leak under the sink. So I sent my guy over to get the plumbing leak fixed. He sends me a picture. They kicked my front door in at some point. Somehow they said it was totes.
Brand new front
We just
door.
renovated. Everything was brand new.
Well,
yeah.
we had some totes and we might have bumped the door.
Don't text me about a couple spiders and kick my door in my unit. So that was fun. Anyways, no, that was how the truck came out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's end on this. I want to know, and this might be really similar to the question of what's your biggest achievement, but I want to know if you could go back and tell your younger self something, what you would say.
Oh, I know that.
Go ahead.
I know that. I would encourage my younger self to lean more into God, pray more about what your gifts are and what your calling is. Or you could just you can make it an easy word, just study yourself. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to what triggers you, what excites you, what your passions are, what your gifts are. I wish I could go back and do that a long time ago. I did that in like my late 30s. was where I really started to try to figure out who I was. Focus on serving others and work hard every day. Those would probably be the three.
Because when you do that, you figure it out. When you do
Yes.
that, you figure out your gifts. You figure out what you're good at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those were the three things I would tell my younger self if I go back, and I'd start way sooner.
I wrote down a couple scriptures with regard to this question, and I want to read them. The first
Please.
one is Proverbs 11:25. It says, "The one who blesses others is abundantly blessed. Those who help others are helped." And then the other one is Galatians 5:13 through 15. This is the Message version, so a little more descriptive, but it says, "It is abundantly clear that God has called you to a free life. Just make sure that you don't use this freedom as an excuse to do whatever you want to do and destroy your freedom. Rather, use your freedom to serve one another in love. That's how freedom grows. For everything we know about God's word is summed up in a single sentence. Love others as you love yourself."
So good. Thank you guys for all of your wisdom and for just helping. Like, you help others. I love that because it's like, because you guys help others, because you're willing to share this knowledge and not gatekeep, which is what so many people do. The freedom that you guys have is growing into the next generation. So
Yeah.
thank you guys.
That's I think how I was going to sum up those scriptures, is just by saying my family has got to a point now, and we've brought our kids up kind of this way, but to pray, Lord, show us opportunities where we can be a blessing. If I could go back, I would start that sooner, because I feel like you are able to receive blessing, I guess, when you constantly have a giver's mentality.
Yeah.
And you find yourself in the middle of opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise be in. I feel like, at least for my own experience, if we didn't have the heart to serve and give, and it has just come full circle so many times in my own personal life. Like, learn to be a giver as quickly as possible. Think outward, not inward.
Yeah.
So if I could give my younger self a piece of advice, that would be it. Think outward, not inward. Be a giver.
Yeah. It's the simple idea, like, it's better to give than receive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Amen.
creates so much joy. To your point, it's awesome to not be a gatekeeper of this information. If we can be a blessing to somebody and help somebody, it's just so inspiring and exciting to see somebody grow beyond where they're currently at,
Yeah.
to see their potential. And be an inspiration, even if it's just on a small scale. I look forward to doing that every chance I get. So
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for doing it. It
It's an
blesses
honor.
us.
yeah. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this was enjoyable and fun for you. Kind of a different take on how we normally do our podcasts. We're honored and grateful that Tori and Jacob were willing and able to come out and spend some time with us and ask us some questions. We love the conversation. We look forward to continuing to come to you with all kinds of different episodes. Go find us on our platforms and interact with us. We love you guys. We're looking forward to this next time. We'll see you later.